The Alabama Supreme Court has decided that an embryo constitutes a life, a child. And this is a write-up in the New Republic I'm going to read from, and this is something that I think is going to set it's the latest frontier in efforts to control reproductive health. So the Alabama Supreme Court on Friday decided that embryos created through in vitro fertilization would be protected under the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act, effectively classifying single-celled fertilized eggs as children. The case, known as LePage versus Mobile Infirmary Clinic Incorporated, rested upon an argument by several intended parents that their embryonic children had been victims of a wrongful death when an intruder broke into the IVF clinic, dropping trays containing some of the embryos and ultimately destroying them. Now, reportedly, this was a patient who had gone in, I don't know why, but had picked up some vials with embryos in it, and they were quite cold to the touch. He/she, I don't know their gender, dropped the vials and destroyed them. And the couples or the people that had these fertilized eggs, these embryos in the facility, sued on the basis of wrongful death. And that in and of itself is a kind of terrifying avenue to go down from the perspective of those bringing the lawsuit. I think negligence or some kind of breach of contract would have been more appropriate. But once you go down this wrongful death route, it begins to open up the doors to classifying embryos as lives. And Alabama was obviously, in their very conservative and religious Supreme Court, a prime state to bring this kind of case to set the precedent for this in the future. In a 7-2 decision, Alabama's highest court ruled that the clinic had been negligent, allowing the parents to proceed with a wrongful death lawsuit. The court also ruled that it is, quote, the public policy of this state to recognize and support the sanctity of unborn life and the rights of unborn children, including the right to life, referring to the Alabama's Constitution's Sanctity of Life Amendment ratified in 2018. The opinion also quotes the Bible as reasoning for functionally killing IVF access within the aggressively pro-life state, turning to an eyebrow-raising verse from Jeremiah 1:5 for guidance before deciding to make it harder for Alabamans to have a family. We believe that each human being from his moment of conception is made in the image of God, created by him and to reflect his likeness. It is as if the people of Alabama took what was spoken of the prophet Jeremiah and applied it to every unborn person in this state. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. Jeremiah 1:5, the opinion read. So, like, this is a state Supreme Court just giving a middle finger to the establishment of religion clause and citing
Sunday school.
Yes, citing the literal Bible in its definition of life. It is a devastating hit to the third-party fertility industry, which is comprised of large networks of agencies, clinics, and egg banks across the nation. Alabama's Supreme Court ruling is a terrifying development for the 1 in 6 people impacted by infertility who need in vitro fertilization to build their families, said Barb Kalora, president and CEO of Resolve, the National Infertility Association. This anti-family ruling will likely have devastating consequences, including impacting the standard of care provided by the state's 5 fertility clinics. This new legal framework may make it impossible to offer services like IVF, a standard medical treatment for infertility. It also remains unclear what this decision means for families who currently have embryos stored at these clinics. Now, here is a notable thread to pull on. What happens if a couple or someone who has fertilized eggs dies in that facility? Or not in the facility, but they have their eggs stored there, they have the embryos stored there, and that person dies. This now means that in Alabama, destruction of those embryos would constitute murder. What this does to IVF clinics is put such an imposition on their ability to provide health care that it could bankrupt them and provide a complete lack of ability for them to provide services. Because, and this is what they're doing. They're using the same way that they chipped away at abortion clinics. This facility has to have ceilings that are 11 feet high and, have a roof that has a sunroof or what. I mean, just very, very specific guidelines in order to make it impossible for these clinics to operate and be financially viable. So, as we've said over and over again about attacks on reproductive health care, they're coming for birth control, but not condoms, the ones that traditionally go in the woman or the person who has a uterus. They're coming for the birth control pill. They are coming for IUDs. They're coming for any kind of healthcare option related to reproductive care that women would have control over, including, say, a single woman who maybe wants to get her eggs fertilized at this clinic because it's outside of the bounds of God and of law. They're also anti-modernity, anti-science. So the idea that these embryos are getting fertilized outside of the womb is in the evangelical conception of what a Christian nationalist society should look like. It flies in the face of God, because if you're a person that can get pregnant or a woman that chooses to go through this procedure, you're not doing so in the godly manner within the confines of marriage. Or if you're a gay media
creator and you and your husband want to have kids.
Yeah, that kind of deal. And then, of course, the piece is it's an attack on gay or lesbian couples or queer couples that are trying to have children outside of these confines as well. So it's Lefter Beref writes in, what happens to leftover fertilized embryos if couples have a successful pregnancy? The clinic can no longer dispose of those. What happens to them? That's exactly right. Oftentimes there are multiple fertilizations and they try with different embryos until there's a successful implantation. So this is an attack on healthcare from a religious perspective, as the Alabama Supreme Court says explicitly, and it has all those undertones. They will come after any kind of health care or reproductive care that is not patriarchal and heteronormative. So if a woman can control her own birth control and can control when she wants to get pregnant and when she can't, they're coming after the birth control pill, they're coming after the IUD. And then if gay couples or single women or lesbian couples, queer couples, trans people, whatever, are going through an IVF process or fertilizing their eggs in a different way, having children in a way that's deemed non-traditional, it's an attack on that. This is going to get copy and pasted in other states. And it's exactly what we were saying from the beginning, that Dobbs, Roe was just the beginning of a minoritarian theocratic push to control your healthcare. And this is just another brick in that world that the right is trying to build. With that said, just wanted to get that story out for the free podcast audience. We will head into the fun half. The number is 646-257-3920.
It is legit half this time when we get to 115. It's actually half.
Close. I mean, we always go over 230.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Although when I'm hosting, I trim it a little bit closer.
Michael used to always say this too, I'm so much better than Sam at not going longer and that. And it was 90 seconds faster on average.
Fair enough. Matt, my cat in bio, says, I doubt that they won't be coming for condoms eventually. They'll probably make it harder to get access to them, screaming indecently and indoctrination that they're so visible and accessible. That'll be the last they'll come for, though. That's my theory.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they have their druthers, they'll have us all in sort of BDSM gear that's religious. But I think we can turn them back. They're not gonna. I think we can fight this. Hopefully,
me too.
Because this is, you saw how much You see how much abortion is done for a Democratic Party that isn't offering, and I don't want to overstate the degree to which there's nothing on offer from the Democrats, but really, I just think there's only so right-wing conservative on these matters that you can go with this. Like the 60s happened.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to affect people in red states trying to get IVF.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yeah.
That kind of thing. And birth control. And the abortion pill we already know. But, you know, what's also, it's scary for people in those deep red states. And then the second use case of that story is to be like, this is what we're up against. And like, this is actually what the ideology is.
Anyway, Sam Harris says we can't deal with Muslims because of how fundamental they are.
Oh, right. That's the other point.